Yeah, don't be shy. Thanks to all of you guys for coming out, for real. This is pretty sick.
Can we give it up for the hundreds and never made teams for the collaboration and the event? I'm really excited about this collaboration and to see all of you guys here. Ever since you kind of teased it at ComplexCon last year at your booth, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for it to drop. Yeah, so I want to get started. I'm going to ask them a few questions, kind of warm up the conversation.
First of all, who are you?
Exactly.
I'm Jocelyn Valencia. I met Francisco. I've been following Never Made for a minute, and I had him on one of my panels at Delicious Vinyl a few months ago, and so that's how we met, and I have the honor of now sitting down with Bobby and Francisco on this collaboration. So yeah, super excited.
Give it up for Jocelyn, everybody.
Give it up for Jocelyn.
Thank you.
Should we do Cisco and I need to introduce ourselves for people who aren't really aware of even why we're here tonight?
This is Bobby Hundreds, if nobody knows who this guy is right here.
I started a brand with my friend Ben 15, 16 years ago called The Hundreds, and over a year ago, I met this guy Cisco. He has a brand also called Never Made, and he's an artist and a consummate designer. He's incredible at what he does, and so I feel like I just stumbled across your work at the show, like at Agenda.
At Agenda.
And then I was like, we should just work together, and it happened. I went down in the DMs.
It went down to the DMs.
Like that actually does happen. And then we started working on a project. That collaboration came out this last week, and to commemorate that project, we decided to do this tonight and also throw a really good show for you tonight with some great bands. So yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
Make sure to stick around for the show. So Bobby, I wanted to start with you because I think it's so dope that the Hundreds is so collaborative, and I wanted to ask you, what do you keep in mind when you're approaching the next collaboration?
Yeah, so obviously collaborations are a really hot topic, not just in terms of streetwear, but I think across all industries right now. I think it has to do with what the internet and social media has done in terms of mixing different cultures and audiences over the last 10 years. But what we've seen from that is just so many different dialogues opening up, and basically industries and creation moving in ways that we didn't see before because people used to be isolated to their own niche worlds. And so now we're getting to see, outside of the streetwear space, you might see like a hot sauce company partner up with like a restaurant, partner up with some kind of business entrepreneur, a musician, and those are all, in my eyes, collaborations. When we approach collaborations under the Hundreds brand, we do it from a place of storytelling. It has to come from a very personal narrative, and so it's not just about, is this going to make the most money, or even if it's going to make the most marketing noise. It has to do with, is there a good story for us to tell? What we tell everyone that works for us is everything needs to begin with a story. Every t-shirt has to have a story, a pair of socks that we design has a story, and even an event like we throw tonight has a story, which you're all learning about right now. So the reason why there needs to be a story is that there's a purpose, and even though it might not seem like the most newsworthy thing at that moment in time, I just have this belief that over an extended amount of years, like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, that purpose really accounts for the longevity of a brand because it has like a real substance and meaning. So that's where the collaborations come from.
Right.
Yeah.
And you mentioned how you stumbled upon Never Made. Francisco, do you remember when you first heard about the Hundreds?
I do actually. I stumbled do I have to move like further back over here? I stumbled across streetwear in about, I would say, 2007, 2008. And yeah, the Hundreds were a prominent player. And this was like Karmaloop era and like Purple. What was that website? Like Purple.
Purple Cloth or something?
Yeah,
but
something like
Digital
that.
Gravel. We were a
Yeah.
Digital Gravel brand. There was like a big distinction between a Karmaloop brand and a Digital Gravel brand.
Yeah, but like
we're on the Digital Gravel side.
it was that era, you know. So I stumbled across your stuff and like this whole really cool, I don't know, like just art-based brands. Because before that, I was like really into like Volcom and you know, your skate brands like Toy Machine and stuff. But you know, I kind of grew out of that stuff, and this was like a little bit more like just on the artistic tip, and I really like effed with it, you know. So that's when I caught wind of the Hundreds and Obey and like Diamond and like all the big dogs, you know. But yeah, that's when I first discovered them. Then I bought a 100 shirt at Zoomies, actually.
Yeah.
The script shirt.
Nice. Thanks, Sumis.
Yeah, right?
I know it's a little loud. Can everyone who's standing right there, can you hear us okay?
Can you guys hear us?
Yeah? Okay.
All
I don't
right,
want to
cool.
talk, like,
Sweet.
people are more than welcome to talk. I'm not going to tell anyone to shut up, but I just want to make sure people who want to listen can hear. And again, you guys can come up closer, you know, like you can literally stand right here. There's so much space, if that'll be easier for
Yeah,
you.
get cozy.
Yeah.
So, tell us a bit about the process of your collaboration. You guys got together and you were like, all right, we're gonna make this collaboration. What does the process look like from there?
You could probably help fill in a little bit of the gaps because it's been so long, and we honestly do work on many collaborations.
Right,
we
yeah.
have a project literally dropping every week to 2
Yeah.
weeks, so I kind of forget the process of some of those projects, but I remember approaching it from a standpoint of, look, this guy's making the best graphics in the game right now. I think we have some of the better cut and sew to offer within our space and our level of streetwear, and how can we have those two worlds collide? And in terms of the messaging and the language of what those graphics were that Cisco was going to be doing for us, I think from a political perspective, we are both on the same tip for the most part. I think there were some sentiments that we shared and an attitude and an outspokenness that we both aligned with in terms of how we spoke on behalf of the brand and weren't ashamed to speak on behalf of the brand with. And so I think that was a natural jumping off point for both of us was, look, we both have something to say in regards to what the social landscape looks like, what the political state looks like. Why don't we start there? And we really just let this man kind of run with what those graphics look like. I mean, he gave us a bunch of options and we honed in on some of the ones that we felt like were more, you know, we were more down with.
Right.
But really, like, this guy was driving the graphic direction of the project, and then the greater cut and sew stuff around it, we help chip in just because that's more of our expertise in the relationship.
Yeah, so the awesome thing about working with Bobby and his team is that, like Bobby said earlier, they're really big on storytelling. And a lot of my work, there's a narrative behind it, you know, like, you know, I try to make it aesthetically as pleasing as possible, but I feel it's important to, you know, take a stand for what you believe in. And luckily, these guys believed in, our beliefs and politics or whatever you call it, like, aligned really well. And so we were able to make something that was really indicative of the times that we're living in right now because, like there's a gun control graphic that I presented. One was a little gnarlier. The one we chose was a little more digestible for the general consumer. But and then the police brutality thing, and that's the cool thing about what I know that they had done in the past is that they had these subversive graphics that they were like putting out, and so I was just like, all right, like this is my chance to like really, take this collaboration and like say something. Like, we could all just make something that looks cool that'll probably sell, but I'm into telling stories and I'm into my work having a narrative, and I'm so happy that these dudes were like, yo, like we dig like the political like undertones, the subversive undertones of the art that you're giving for these graphics, and the fact that they were down to do not just do t-shirts but do like cut and sew and stuff. Like that's something that I've never done and ever, like I don't even know if I'll do it again to be honest, but they gave me that opportunity, and I'm very grateful to you and your team for allowing me that platform to really say something and really kind of drive a message out there, because there's brands out there that make things that are cool and stuff, but there aren't very many that really make things that have real substance and real stories, and I think that's important, and that's very important in my artwork and the t-shirt graphics that I put out, and I'm really happy with the stuff that they picked and the stuff that we put out.
Me too.
Shout out to the Mexican blanket inspiration.
Yes,
That was dope.
that was actually the first thing I pitched to these guys. Bobby didn't even know what those blankets were. I pulled up, I was just like, all right, first of all, like I want to make something that I had this idea like in 2006. Like I was like, I want to make a jacket made out of these puffy blankets, right? And then they were like, why not just make the blanket? And I was just like, oh dang, that'd be dope. And so I took that aesthetic and used their iconography, the hyena, and just to really like tie into my Mexican roots, but do it like in a new updated way, because there's none of these blankets exist with a hyena. It's just like majestic lions and tigers and bears, and there's this badass hyena like chilling on there, and I really, again, the narrative back to my roots as a child of two illegal immigrants. These are things that I grew up with, and that's another cool thing that their team was so like, yes, like we like that, we've never done that, like let's do it, and I thought that was really cool for them to be down for something like that.
By the way, I know what that blanket is. It's just that I call it a Korean blanket. We have the same thing. We thought we invented those.
Damn, so we've done.
Yeah.
All right.
Every culture ends up having it.
Just an immigrant thing. They're like, we're fucking freezing. Let's just make the heaviest blanket
The heaviest
possible.
acrylic blanket you
That
can
was like
make.
early technology. Just make a really big blanket.
Yeah.
And we'll call it ours.
Hey, everyone loves it.
Yeah.
How much does the political climate affect each of your work?
I think it affects me just as a human on a daily basis. In this country, I love America, but I'm also a brown person, I'm a person of color, I'm an Asian American person. All these things affect my work for better and for worse. It affects my livelihood, it affects my happiness for better or for worse. And I feel like I'm reminded of it all the time, whether I remind myself intentionally or just the way that the system is or the way that the culture is. I'm reminded of where I stand in terms of that, in terms of my race, in terms of me being a man, in terms of like my wealth level and all those things. So I try to be as cognizant of it as possible. I would hope that everyone were as self-aware of like where they are and whether they would admit to certain privileges or whether they are faced with certain things that other people don't have. And I think it's important for us to all take note of it and also to do something with that, and my perspective on activism has always been, it's very simple. It's just standing up for yourself and standing up for other people. And I do my best to just stand up for myself, and sometimes when I see things that don't necessarily make sense out there in the world, you can call it injustice or an inequality or just like, and it might not be what the media is portraying to you as a political injustice. It's just things that I don't think are making much sense in the world. I'll call bullshit on it, or I'll do whatever I can to rectify the situation by using my platform, So sometimes like my activism and my political outspokenness looks a certain way, but it's rarely, it's less of a angry tweet, and it's more of like, can I do something with the fact that I own a streetwear label?
Right,
like, can I give a platform for a female moderator of color? That's important, right? Like, I'm about to go on a book tour, and we are all asking whoever the moderators are in the city that I'm like, I need it to be a female moderator. Right. And that's something that I wasn't cognizant of maybe 3-4 years ago. Yeah. And it took me time to learn, like, oh yeah, that's weird. Like, there's never a woman up there on stage with me. There's rarely women in this space in general, in the streetwear space. So anytime I can give a woman a voice in our world in a room like this, it's like, I have the power to do that, I can do that. Like, to me, that's more powerful than going on Instagram and like just writing like a crazy caption, which I do. Like sometimes I still have to do that and get into an argument on a Facebook thread somewhere, but I think it's more important for us to be able to be aware of where we stand, what our platforms are, and then use it to your advantage to wherever you think is right. Like my opinion, I'm not saying that I'm completely right all the time, but I'm learning with new information, constantly changing opinions on things, and I just try to be as transparent about that as possible. I think it comes with transparency in running a brand. Like, everything's on the table for me.
Yeah, for sure. Same here. Like, I try to, sometimes I get really sick of the news cycle, and I try to just ignore it, and I wish I could be like ignorant to it, but I can't. Like, I have to tune into NPR every morning. I listen to KPCC, and but I'm also like I'm down to listen to everybody's opinion, So instead of like just posting some angry political rant or whatever, I try to do a piece on the way that I'm feeling, and then I leave the forum open for interpretation, because that's important for me. It's like, I think the country's so polarized right now, like left and right, like there's just like, well, fuck you, I don't agree with your politics, fuck you, I don't agree with yours. That I think with art, which is the awesome thing about it, is that it's subjective, and somebody could, like, I have my narrative for the piece is what it is to me, but I'd love to hear what it is to everybody else. Like with that gun control graphic, like in my comments section, like shit went off, like, but that's what I want to hear. I want to hear like why there shouldn't be gun control, or why should there be gun control, but yeah, I think it's important to kind of just like listen to both sides, like, and it gives me a gauge on like who is looking at my work and who isn't. I mean, I'm super on the left side, but if somebody on the right side likes my work, that's cool too. Like, I fuck with them too. Like, as long as they're not like Nazi, like racist, like pieces of shit,
If you go back to, how many of you design T-shirts? Are any of you owners of T-shirt brands and know how to design T-shirts? If you go back to the purpose of the T-shirt outside of like the actual just survival mechanism of wearing clothes, it's, in terms of the graphics, is to invite conversation, right? Like, that's what in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, when people were putting statements on t-shirts, they were inviting conversation, stoking a dialogue, trying to basically build a bridge and build relationships between the person wearing it and the community or the person standing in front of them. And I don't think that has ever changed. You know, we're sitting here in 2019, and it's, you know, we call it streetwear, we call it fashion. We have all these different words for what we're creating out here. Brand now is like the big, you know, brand building. We're really just trying to start conversations with complete strangers and connect brains in ways like meet people from different backgrounds with different opinions on things. And so the purpose of when we're designing t-shirts is to do that. Can we get people to think a little differently? Can we open them up to talking to us in a way where we wouldn't have had that opportunity outside of a graphic t-shirt? So if you are a t-shirt designer, I think it's important to keep that in mind, that your purpose and your job is to create beautiful art to make the world look better. Yeah. But you should also be thinking with the objective of getting to people to think differently, not necessarily think along the lines of your truth, but think differently in terms of taking them outside of their comfort zone, right. Showing them a different vantage point. And I think that's why t-shirts today are just so incredibly prolific and profoundly, they're pervasive in culture. And there's so many t-shirt brands, and there's so much streetwear and fashion out there, all based on graphic t-shirts. Like, the graphic t-shirt goes through trends and ups and downs, but it can never truly die, because I think everyone always wants that connection. They're always right. Looking for a dialogue.
Yeah, be intentional with what you're creating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely want to give you guys the opportunity to ask your questions as well. So I want to open up the floor.
Yeah, do you guys have any questions for me or Bobby?
Raise your hand and we'll come by with a mic.
Yeah.
Don't be shy.
I actually was at the last.
What's your name?
My name is Danny Trejo.
Whoa, Danny Trejo!
Yeah.
Sorry, you get that like 7 times a day.
I do. Actually, went to your last one where you did it at your store, question Q&A, and one of the things that you told us that we didn't ask collaboration, which we talked in the beginning about between you guys, but I just wanted to know a little bit more about how you collaborate with like Disney, you know, or like the big like brands like that already. Not saying you're not big, of course not, because your shit's tight, really tight.
I'm the little guy.
Super
This
dope.
is my Disney right here. No lie.
You know, just wanted to get a little bit more information on that part.
Yeah.
Collaborate with bigger brands.
So even that word collaboration starts getting a little thin at the Disney level. It's really just a licensing project. And there's a distinction, because this is a true collaboration. In my opinion, in terms of what we do in streetwear, in terms of fashion, collaboration meaning two people get together, we have our own ideas, 50% of an idea, 50% we create something new together on our own, which would have never existed. Like, that is the most fulfilling, the most, to me, like, these are the collaborations that I remember. We do events like this, we bring community together for collaborations like that. Disney projects are really important in their own right. They have their own purpose, but they're licensing projects for the most part. And licensing projects are more like big, they don't necessarily have to be big companies, but they're basically someone who owns the rights to a certain brand or a property, and they say, you can borrow this thing, but you owe us somewhere between 8 and 12% of whatever you make off of it. And there's like usually they give you like a style guide of like, this is what you can do and what you can't do with Mickey.
There's restrictions.
There's instructions on like how you can have Mickey Mouse stand and what you can do and say, and like he has to wear his pants, you know, and I'm like, well, what about Mickey with no pants? And they're like, no, Mickey needs to wear pants. So those projects, they're actually like pretty straightforward. They're not as difficult as you think they would be. It's just more about, can you pay like a minimum guarantee? Can you pay like for a minimum guarantee is you owe us $30,000 to work with Mickey, whether you sell one shirt or like X amount of shirts to cover your own costs, like you still owe us 30 grand or 100 grand or $500,000 or $1 million. Like the minimums are crazy. So at that point, it really does become about just, can you afford to do the project, which is dumb. I know. It's like, it's so, you know, like we call those collaborations because they are in a way, because we collaborate with our creative teams on trying to work within their parameters. But this is like, from a human level, this is such a much more important and powerful collaboration for any brand. The other ones are good for sales, right? They're good for sales.
Like we've become like friends after this collaboration, you know, like it's pretty sick because the year before we met at Agenda at ComplexCon, I was like stalking him because I just wanted to introduce myself to him, you know, and I was just like, we were, me and my business partner Dre, we were outside of Ben Baller's talk, and we like saw you out there, and I was like, yo, I just want to go and like just tell him who I am and just like say what's up, and then just like that's it, like, you know, I want to be on his radar, you know. And then but not to get all like super like spiritual and shit, but like I do believe in the law of attraction. And he was, as soon as I was gonna walk up to him, like a bunch of kids like surrounded him, and I was like, all right, fuck it, that wasn't the time, it'll happen another time. And then the time that it happened is when he happened to walk by my booth at Agenda, and he walked into my booth, and I was just like, oh shit. I was like, yo, what's up? And this is right when you were planning into action.
Yes. Yeah.
He was planning into action, which was this amazing like activist.
It's like a social justice festival.
Yeah,
like a
it was
complex
dope.
for a social festival.
And that's when I was like, hey man, like I want to be a part of that. And he was like, oh yeah? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, pretty much like, who are you? And I was like, oh yeah, my bad. And like,
are you that guy that's following me everywhere?
Right. And I was like, well, yeah, I told him the story of what Never Made is and blah, blah, blah. And then he was just like, you're like just kind of stern and quiet. And I was like, damn, I just blew it. But then the next morning I got the DM, and he was just like, yo, let's work together. And I was like, what the fuck?
Okay, so that's, this is all true. I was thinking about this morning. I was driving to work, and I was wondering, why did I choose to reach out to you? Because, you know, we both get a lot of people DMing us and coming up to us and saying, I have a brand, and
always.
Right, that's like a pretty common, like, I have a brand, will you work with me, or what will it take for me to work with you? And, you know, it's like you waiting outside, like trying to get to me and ask those questions, those 6 kids who come up to me and whatnot. And I always tell those kids the same thing. I say, it really is about the work. Like, your work has to be so good that I can't ignore you, right? Like, I would have to be an idiot to pass you by at that point. Like, that's how good your work is. Once your work gets to that level, like, I will approach you, you know, and that's a pretty good illustration of it happening in real time.
Oh yeah,
it's in real life.
Super
like,
organic.
Yeah, it happened in the sense of, you know, he was trying to get at me, I guess. Now I'm realizing I see his work out there. I see so many people's work every day. I'm like, that's cool, that's great. But his stuff, something triggered when I was looking at his t-shirts, and I was just like, God, this is just so good. It looks so different from anything else that's out there. I see a lot of people trying to emulate this style, but he's doing it, he's just, I don't know, it's different, it's good. He's a professional person, he's a nice guy, like all these things added up, and I was like, I just want to work with him. And that's, you know, all those things aligned. So don't be frustrated if you're trying to work with someone, or you're trying to get in the door, trying to sell to a certain store, or like you're trying to get a brand off the ground and you're not, it's just, a lot of it is timing, and a lot of it is just getting your work to a certain place. And it's not necessarily also that your work is bad, or that you're bad at what you do. Sometimes it's just the climate and the culture, and a lot of things have to converge in the marketplace for there to open up an opportunity for you to even exist. There's a lot of incredible artists and designers out in the world, but they're just making the wrong shit for right now. And like, that's okay. Like, we are in that space all the time. Like with the hundreds, there are years where we're just making our best work, but things are just misaligned in the universe, and like no one is seeing it. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, I'm doing it for me, and I'm doing it because I enjoy doing it. And I just know that when the pendulum swings back in our direction, we're gonna catch it, because we're still working, we still have the momentum and the energy to catch on to that. So it just takes time, it takes years, like sometimes it's like 6 years, 4 years of lulls, like literally just like waiting around for the marketplace to swing back and like hit you again, but you have to be prepared for that moment.
Yeah. That's why I always say, like, if you're building a brand, like, you gotta trust the process and not be like overzealous and just try too hard. Like, just go at your own pace. That's how I did it. Like, my Never Made was never supposed to be a t-shirt brand. It was just, you know, an art alias for me. And it's something that I was in bands for a couple years, and my bands like fell apart, but I kept doing it, right? And then once like my last band fell apart, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put all that energy and everything that I learned from being in bands, I just put into myself. So I essentially became a one-man band until like I needed to, like, I couldn't do it by myself anymore, and that's when I brought my boy Dre over there. He's the unsung hero. Let's give Dre a hand. Like, he did a lot to get this whole thing together, along with the Hundreds team. But like I said, trust the process. Don't compare yourself to other people, like, ever. Because once you start comparing yourself to other people's accomplishments, like, you become like jealous, and it like breeds like jealousy and stuff. Like, count your own like small accomplishments, and eventually like the ball will start to it'll get rolling, and things will snowball, and things will happen. Like I said, like I've been doing graphic design for over 10 years. I've been in the streetwear industry for 7. Been doing my own thing for 4, maybe 5 years. And then these things just barely started to happen, because you have to be tenacious. You have to just keep pushing. You always have to keep pushing. And eventually you build relationships with Bobby Hundreds, or like I work with Shepard Ferry, like that. Like both of these guys are like 2 like huge beacons for me, and like I'm like, okay, where does this go from here? I don't know, but that's what Never Made means. It's like there's no roof, there's no ceiling. Never made means never done, never finished. You always keep progressing, and you always move forward, and you always just keep pushing and keep pushing. And I'm super grateful for Bobby for helping me and helping me with his platform, because he got a big megaphone, and for him to mess with all these younger brands is the coolest shit, and I can't wait to do that for the future generations.
You're doing it right now, Cisco. You have a question?
What's going on? My name's Sean. Can we first give these 2 gentlemen a round of applause for getting everyone together? And this is a beautiful thing. I got to get a laugh. Look at all the hard work and look at all the work for making this. This is awesome. There's not enough of this going around, so I want to thank both of you for doing it, and your guys' team. And then my question is, can you guys both kind of explain to everyone in here, I imagine is an artist in some way or another, explain the genesis of your guys' inspiration and some of the hard work and some of the things that you guys do, just so you can kind of inspire everyone and kind of reinforce that everyone's on their right track.
Well, for me, you know what? Like, to be completely honest, like, I never set out to like really inspire anybody. It's just like art, design, and music. It's my passion, and I think that comes out in my work, and I think people pick up on that sort of stuff. Yeah, I went to school for design. I gave up on it for about 2 years because I couldn't find a job. I was working at a record store for minimum wage. But like I said, it's more of a, if you have the talent, if you have the work ethic, and you have just that push in you, I think like that's the recipe for success. Like, even though if you fail like a bunch of times, like eventually it'll get there. I used all the bands that I was in for about 8 years. Like, those were like my first brands, right? I named them, I branded them, I wrote the music, and one would stop, then I would start another one. That one would end, and I would start another one. And so I always say that Never Made is my fourth band, and I always say that it went from garage band to garage brand. Wait, did I mess that up? Yeah, I messed that up. It went from garage band to garage brand.
Yeah, we got it. My inspiration, I think I've been doing this now for almost 16 years. And so when I look back at what I was really trying to do, I think when I was starting the brand, I thought I just wanted to be heard, maybe just being a minority in a minority, being into music that was weird, growing up, being into skateboarding, things that weren't mainstream. I think I was like, maybe I just want to be heard. I thought that's what was propelling me. Now that I look back on it, I think what I was doing was I just really wanted to meet as many people as possible. Like, in terms of what I really appreciate about the job and what inspires me the most to do what I do is when I travel, I get to meet people. It's just what I was touching on earlier in terms of engaging with different ideas. Like, that's what really gets my brain going. And so I think all of this was just in order to do what I'm doing right now, which is to connect with as many different people, diversity of ideas, diversity of opinions, and like I feel like I grow as a person with every individual that I get to meet. And so the whole purpose of the brand, I feel like at this point, was to do that. And if you distill that down to a simple idea, it's just building community. So I grew up feeling like I didn't have a community in many regards. And so I think in the course of my career, I've been able to build my own community where I felt very comfortable. And so if you're able to do that within the realm of your brand, or if you're in music and you have a band, or you have any other kind of project or some kind of business, like, it's a very rewarding feeling to be able to feel like you essentially establish your own universe for you to feel like you actually have an identity and that you belong in that space. And so I have that now with the Hundreds, and so I think that's what it was all about. I think that's why I do it every day still, is to meet people. Any other questions?
Any more questions out there? Not even t-shirt, but like entrepreneur, like on any sort of level?
My name's Eric. I got a question for both you guys. What is your guys' brands? What does the future hold for you guys? For the brand?
Future hold for the brand? The future hold for the brand, for the Hundreds? I don't know. I hope it never dies.
Where would you say you guys can end up? Or you guys are already like, an established brand. You guys are authentic. You guys are putting in a lot of work, a lot of stories and everything. Do you think you guys will, the way everything's shifting nowadays with retail and online and everything, how do you guys manage to stay relevant in today's society?
Relevance is a weird word. I think relevance is subjective, right? I think if you were to go out into, I'll give you like 10 streetwear stores in the world. If you walk in a few of them, they would say the Hundreds is irrelevant. 3 of them would say they're the most relevant right now, and the ones in between would be like, yeah, they're kind of like cool. You know, so, and I bet you if you ask the people in this room the same thing, they'd be like, oh, the Hundreds, like that was cool 10 years ago. And if you ask a 14-year-old kid right now, they'd be like, the Hundreds is one of the best brands because they're like a heritage brand. So I don't really operate off of relevance as much as I just need to make sure that the business is intact, because at the end of the day, what we're all really doing is we're running businesses here. So much of it is about image, and so much is about like cultural relevance, and is hypebeast writing about me? But if you know how to maintain and operate a thriving business, like from the inside, a healthy business, you can exist forever. And so fuck the relevance, or fuck being popular, or like this rapper wore your shit, or like, you know, so-and-so co-signed whatever. It's just like, who cares if at the end of the day, you're making enough money to provide for yourself, or for your family, or for your friends, your community, you're giving your friends jobs, like you're making art that's being seen and is visible in the world, like whatever it is that is your agenda, or the purpose of like why you're even doing it to begin with. For me, it's just to meet people. That's relatively free. Like I actually don't need a lot of money. I don't need any relevance to do that. I can just do that. Like people on the street get to meet people every day, you know? So in that way, like I'm ultimately like, I'm a bazillionaire, you know? So like it doesn't matter. Like that question is maybe not the best way to look at, you know, what is a successful business, what's a successful career, and you know, so that's my answer to that. Yeah.
For me, it's the Hundreds is like a legacy brand at this point, and I want to reach like that point. But right now, it's like it's different for like up and coming brands, because you know, these guys came up before social media, you know, like was really a thing. And now like the internet has really democratized the market. And so it's like really like, how do I cut through all the chatter and like really build a Hundreds type brand in this new environment, which is more of a e-commerce and you know, direct consumer market. Because before it was just like all these brands that came out, they crushed it because they were at the top, right? Like, and then once like social media came in and really democratized the play, like just leveled the playing field. Like so now it's like, you know, there's a bunch of like smaller brands just really trying to redefine how to build a thriving business that has potential to last 16 years, you know, and that's my goal. And hopefully, you know, that is possible. But if it doesn't happen, like, I'm cool with it. Like, I'm happy with what I've done so far. Like, I'm stoked, and I'm stoked that people here are wearing my t-shirts, and people buy my art, and people like just fuck with this collaboration. Like, I think it's fucking awesome that this man right here really nurtures the smaller brands, takes them under their wings, and gives them a platform to really, you know, help them raise their voice and be heard and be known. So I think that's what my plan is for the future. Even if it's not as what do you say? Even if it doesn't make me millions of dollars, like cool, like I'm fine with, like he was saying, it's not about fucking money or whatever. Like I'm cool with where I'm at, and even the small impact that I've made on younger designers and smaller brands, like that's what kind of just really like feeds my soul.
We have time for one more question. Does anyone have a question?
Thanks for being so patient and sticking through this, you guys. I know it's hard.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so kind of to add to that, in the last 3 years, what would you say is each of your biggest challenges that you have faced?
In the last 3 years, in the last 3 days, the last 3 hours, so many challenges. It's hard, you know, it's hard at every level building a brand. I feel like the same things that new brands are facing today is a hardship. Bigger brands, I don't even think we're considered like a really big brand. We're like a moderate sized brand, you know, perspective wise, but we still face the same things. And that's the interesting things that in terms of like democratization of even hardships is that like we're all wondering what's happening with retail. So if you have a startup label, you're like, do I need to just go completely direct? You know, should I invest in wholesale at all? You know, is it all going to go to e-com and Shopify cards, and do stores matter anymore? Like, I ask that same question too. I think there's hardships in terms of just wondering where the world's going to go. I mean, like, there are people out there saying the world's going to end in like 20 years. You know, there's like UN reports that are not looking too great. So I think we're all kind of dealing with the same problems at this point of automation, AI. Like, are any of us going to have jobs? Like, will we need any of this? I think one of the things that maybe I'm hoping most of you are recognizing right now in this industry and marketplace is the issue of sustainability. And I've been talking about it a lot, but streetwear, not just streetwear, fashion, clothing in general contributes to so much waste. And that is something that there really is not the best solution for yet. Like, if Yvon Chouinard from Patagonia hasn't figured it out, like, we should be all a little bit concerned because he's at the forefront of a lot of this stuff. There's some really great companies. There's good industry opening up in the sustainability space, but just the fact that we make clothes means we're contributing to waste. Like, we don't need any more clothes. Like, how about that problem, right? We're all using 8 to 10% of our wardrobes. We don't need more clothes, and like, we have enough clothes to last us a lifetime. So how do we address that issue? Like, that's something that even if it doesn't immediately affect what you're doing right now, that conversation is expediting so fast that I started getting pressed about it when I would go out and speak maybe 8 months ago for the first time. Kids started standing up going like, what are you doing about all the waste you're contributing to the planet? And I was just like, oh, I honestly never thought about it. Next question. And now when I go and speak at universities, it's like half the room is asking me like, but what are you doing about sustainability? You know, so, and the more I talk about it on social media, I've been having the, like, Nike was talking about a tweet that I wrote the other day. So at Nike Corporate today, in all the meetings they were passing around, like, what are we doing about sustainability? Because Bobby knows that this is going on with sustainability. So it's trickling down. By the end of this year, you're all going to be faced with it. Like, I don't know what it means for the future of just clothing in general. I don't know what it means for the future of brands, but I've had people confront me on issues as far as like, stop inspiring people to build brands. We don't need more brands. And like, there is a truth to that, you know, like what we're doing to the world by building all these brands and inspiring everyone to be their own company. Like, do we need that? Do we need more of that capitalism? Do we need that? And it's like, there's a truth to that. So that's probably my biggest hurdle or obstacle that I've been trying to figure out for the last 6 months, and it's almost like all hands on deck in terms of where my head is at right now. Yeah.
My problems aren't that big, and I'm glad. Like I said, I run my brand out of a garage, but I guess your question was, where do you see the brand in 3 years from now? Oh yeah, that's right. I would say it's just creating a presence. Because like I said, there's so much chatter out there. There's a new brand like every day. Like Bobby was saying, because he inspires so many people to start brands. So I think for me, it's more of how do you break through all that static? How do you stand out? what can I do to separate myself from the rest of the smaller brands. I guess I would say that's been like the biggest challenge, and honestly, like I've been blessed, and it's been going good for me. But I don't know. I'm still learning. Like I'm treading. I'm going through uncharted waters right now. Like it's all a learning process. I'm sure he's gone through it. Like I'm in the process of it, but it's challenging. But I also like welcome the challenge. Like I want to see what I could do and how to really, you know, how can I be the hundreds
You don't
for
wanna
the
be the
next
hundreds.
generation?
Okay.
You know, like just more on that, because he's such an inspiring dude that I want to be that sort of beacon of inspiration for everybody. But you know, mostly like I grew up like all the artists that I grew up like looked up to were like didn't look like me. So I want brown kids to be like, hey, that guy kind of looks like me. I wanna do that. Like, you know, I was born in Compton, like raised in Carson, like just straight up, just came from nothing, and you know, I want to be able to inspire the youth and like the inner city youth to really kind of see that design and art can actually be a career.
Thanks, Jocelyn.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Can we give them a round of applause? Basically, the learning never ends. Trust the process. Be intentional with your work. Dreams come true.
They do, guys.
This collaboration is
More
dope.
nightmares come true also. A lot of nightmares.
But yeah, give them another round of applause. Stick around for the show tonight. Cop some merch.
Thank you for coming. Enjoy.
Yeah,
Have fun.
thanks, guys. Appreciate it.